to be covering today that we weren't able to cover in class are process data. And so kind of get into that and explain what we mean by passive process data. The role of multivariate in the DMAIC process, plan for a multivariate study, sampling, and how to create some multivariate charts. I attached a PowerPoint presentation to this meeting that you guys all should have. I'm going to be going through it, and then I also sent out some Minitab files on some examples that we'll be walking through today.
Right.
Okay. So, get started with up on my other screen. So, okay. So the things we just talked about we're going to cover today. Multi falls in the analyze phase of Six Sigma. The whole point of and measure is to help reduce the number of variables that we're going to record data on. To see into this when we're talking about multivariate studies and data points we need. It's talking about recording 50 X's, and then you have to get 30 different data points. That's a lot of data that you have to manage while line is running, right? So what we try to do, we do the IPO cause and effect FMEA to help narrow it down to just a key input variables, KIVs. So you've all kind of seen this process output Y condition, right, is comprised of a bunch of different X's, function of these different variables. We have lots of variables in our process, and what we're doing with our effect and FMEA is helping to narrow down and to figure out which one of those X's are most important, and then collecting data to see how they affect and what our final equation is. So you can see here what we talked about, Pareto charts, process maps, cause and effect, get down to 5 X's that we can seriously consider. So chasing every different variable is ambient temperature in the warehouse, if about inventory volume levels. So what's important before we start recording data. When I talked about passive analysis of the X's on the Y, so typically when we're doing a multivariate study, we set something up and we go out and we just observe. That's what I mean. We're observing normal process. On the side, an active analysis of data, you have time to stop the machine, set up under the settings that we want to test, and then run it and see how it performs. That's considered something that we would do about later called the DOE, design of experiment. More involved and sometimes take more resources to do, especially in the production world. But what we know about multivariate, and I used it on my project, it comes really handy, is you observe at different points of the day, different products that are being run, and all the X's have an effect on your Y you're wanting to record at different times. You also collect past data you need. So this is where it comes in handy, is if you have a really good data collection system now, you back and look at how your X's relate to your Y. An example would be if my X's is operate on a machine and Y is downtime. If I have a good system to track how many operators I have, then I can use this as a variable to analyze my downtime, which is Y. kind of sense for everyone? Anybody have any questions about passive analysis of your KIVs on your Y condition? Okay, and we'll keep talking about how to set up your spread so you can record some of these X's. So not have the downside of historic data is sometimes it doesn't relate to our Y condition. We have all of this information, but we're not able to tie it directly into the specific time or the batch that affect our Y condition occurred. So that's why sometimes multi-historic data is insufficient, right? What we're wanting is we're wanting to tie these KPIVs to my condition in order to improve my Y condition. So what we have to do is figure out what condition is and what free I'm recording my Y condition. So if I'm recording I've been helping Steve Parnes with his project. An example is he records metal paint missing. Right? How often is he recording this and putting it into the system? If his process been total number of sheets on a daily basis, and he just added them up and said, today 5, yesterday I had 15, the day before I had be his smallest time frame. What we will do is we're wanting to get to more frequent recording Y so that we see what variables are affecting it, because the larger group that I'm my Y condition in, less more opportunity for variables to change on the X side. So if I'm how much are scrapped per day, then if how many employees I have per day, that's a little, it's kind of hard to see because I measure per shift. So I measure my scrap per shift, and then you can start looking at other variables. You want to break it down and get it on the shortest time possible. Continuum is the best, but if you're around on a hourly, I'm saying we had this many scraps in 15 minutes, then you would record your extra KPIs on a 15-minute interval. We'll get into this a little bit more, and as you work on your own project, you'll start to understand what amount of time. So, part about when we're going through setting up the study is there are certain variables that the operators I have. That's not going to change per shift. When I am going through and recording data and gathering the right data, I'm going to worry about operator. I'm going to worry about it once in the beginning, and then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to record things like line speed that is more variable, whereas my operator is not going to change as often. Sampling plan, we'll talk about this as well. How many observations are good? I said 30 data points is the minimum now that we'll need for a multivariate study. Data that obviously with a various study, anything that we're recording, we're going to try to put it in numeric fashion. Pass fail aren't the best for multivariate. What you really want is numbers, measurements, continuous data. Okay, we'll talk about entering the data and storing and who's responsible for sampling. If you test with a multivariate study because it's so important for your project that you're really involved in this, So if you're needing to record something on all different shifts, you know, one, maybe two people to help you and make sure that they fully understand what needs to be recorded, the process and how we're recording it, and everything like that. To ensure that you remember about MSA, we want to be able to trust our data. So we want to be able to make sure that you recording it is the same as the person helping you on the back shift or night shift. Things about process and now state, not in transition. After we collect it, be there. Important, like I said, just want to pass this off to somebody because this is a very important step in your project. Full of multi-data worksheet. I believe in an email that I just sent to you guys. So I've got this, you plan out what you're going to record and your measurement method, your frequency, how often you're recording it. And then we don't have to do analysis, but we want to know when and where. So how often is it going to be recorded? Who recorded it? We're going to take steps to get to that 30 data points. Here's an example out. We've got some of these. We've got our metal detector, an X-ray, floor cleanliness, good condition, no pound storage. So these are visual observations, and they're recorded daily.
Not the number 30.
Just the size needed to determine your normal population. So 30 is what we are also aim for the MSA. So about 3 operators repeated twice for measurements, we end up 30. So it is just a general number that the statistics world deemed acceptable for how many data points can of a sample accurate my entire population. So recording 10 data points, I might have something that's off, that is skewed, that wouldn't accurately reflect my normal state. So 30 is the number, and when we talk about sample size for a sample versus a population, 30 is the general number that we get to.
Okay. 30 is supposed to be valid regardless of the size of the population you use, as long as the sampling is random?
Correct.
Okay.
So worksheet, because with metal detectors and cleanliness, compound storage, what we're trying to figure out is the effect of the X's down here. 60 scrap tires. So 16 Z's are mapped. For some reason, we're trying to figure out if these X's, KPIVs, have anything to do with it. Another, the effect wrong or present on the number of tires rejected at truck dock. Okay. About passive data, going out and checking daily different tire types to their correct screen requirements. If we go here, and cleanliness, visual observation. Because this is a passive test, we're not going to do anything to affect the cleanliness. If I'm a DOE and this came up as a KPIV, one thing I would do is I would measure it once with the pan clean, and I would measure it once with the pan dirty. But we don't have over the cleanliness of the pan, right? So that's why for passive recording with the multivariate study, we don't make the pan dirty because we feel like that might have something to do with the output of scrap tires. Just some more. So as the multivariate worksheet, that is you would want to fill out complete your FMEA. You want to put your KIVs in there. You want to figure out what variables you need to record. Find if they're controllable or uncontrollable. Attribute data. Obviously, the more data point how they're continuous, the better. You can do regression analysis and things like that we'll talk about later on our continuous data. Joe, you talked about this a little bit. We capture the full range, right? So we think about 7 operation. You go out and record every day at 8 a.m. variables. I'm measuring the entire sample population, right? I'm doing a small sliver. I'm seeing what first shift is doing at the beginning of their shift, right? In your plan for collecting data, you want to make sure that how much of population that you're sampling from. Okay. Talk about 3 needed, or 30, sorry. It's another reason why. So for attribute data, go pass fail data points. So if I change instead of saying how many operators are running this machine, and I'm recording somewhere between 5 and 20 operators running this line. If I said I have more than 10 operators on this machine and recording yes nos, 300 data points. You think about flipping a coin. Flipping a coin, it a bunch of and tails, a couple. Then do it. You are to up with that 50% probability of heads, 50% of tails, right? Only flipping the coin 30 times is highly the probability of heads is not point. Okay, attribute data. We want to data points and figure out what the true population is doing. We'll try to do as many things in variable data as we can. Does anybody have kind of? Seen earlier, if we can make sure to get represent our population. I don't just want to sample at 8 a.m. I want to make sure to get across the whole board. And if you pull one in on second shift to help you record data throughout the day. Not exactly about cluster sample. Okay. So we're going to get into in a second using multivariate. So you've given multivariate example 1 worksheet. So is we're going to pull up that work, and we're going to run this to the normality and the capability of the y. Okay, so go ahead and pull up mini 1. Give you guys hands up. Into here to show how you would, with this data, show ability, no capability of the y. Here's you guys know how to do this. Okay. Who wants to see how I would do it then? If anyone wants to volunteer to share the screen. The capability of our y. What would a mini tab? You're killing me. I'm going to give a minute and then I'm going to start picking on people.
Still getting my mini tab pulled up.
Okay. Is there any that's trouble getting tab open, or any that already has mini tab open?
And I'm trying to get the example to appear as a project I can open in Minitab.
Oh, because it's a little more difficult to.
Yeah.
And we also are having problems opening the file. I think we've got Minitab opening the file has proven to be somewhat difficult, so you may have to wing this one and show us.
Okay. So back to X, I can show you guys where we are. We got the here. Okay, so I have a data set like this with days in my y condition. How would I calculate this normal and the capability of my column? that we learned on Thursday that tells us everything I need to know about our data set.
Capability six-pack?
Okay, so 6-packs, right? Capability 6-pack, normal, right? So is what I'm trying to understand. Size is 1. Okay. Identify upper and lower limits. Sales daily budget, and it says in PowerPoint, is 7,500. Lower spec is 7,500. Up, say 1,500, 15,000. You remember this? 6-pack?
Yep.
Which part tells me the stability of data, sales data? With this 6-pack stability. Is this process stable? Would we do this process stable based on our usual chart? Yeah. Right. We have any data points outside of our upper and lower control limits, right? So
right.
We're stable, which is good, right? If we have data points outside of that, it doesn't mean that the weighting, right? It's just that our process is considered out of control. Errors, right? We talked about that too, outliers. We'd want to figure out why. If we had a sales day below 7,000, we'd want to figure out why, right? So then we talk about normality. How could I figure out my test normality?
Thermal probability plot, the fat test.
So, looking at normal probability plot, would you guys say that this is normal data or is not normal, non-normal data?
It's normal.
Normal, right? So the pencil test. Over that cover lines, dots. So a normality test. The other way that's a little more solid is we look at the p-value. If it's greater than 0.5, we end up with a good normality test. Then Darling AD score, we want that to be as low as possible. So it's not hugging the center line exactly, but it's pretty close. So we're going to call it normal. You can see up here from the histogram that it's the bell curve as well. Okay, we'll figure out. Okay. I guess I could do it a different way. Got my CPK, because it says capability down here, so you guys all know. For my PK, and remember for bonus points, PK value of 0.8 then tells us.
Isn't it 1 if it's actually centered within your spec limits?
One CPK is, you're centered and fit one, it's like one on the left and one on the right of the upper and spec. So a CPK of 1 is 3 sigma. So we end up with sigmas to the right and 3 sigmas to the left in the spec. So anything above CPK of 0.7 is pretty good, I guess is what we're looking for. So the more that you have it and the tighter the bell curve have, the higher the CPK. So that ends up with a high CPK. So it looks like we're pretty good based on these here. Right? So I'm supposed to do is see if we can figure out which x's have an effect on our y. We go back to tab data. So our y are sales. We got are sold, part sold, promote, and vehicle class. For those of you who have gone through session 5 on Morris team, any suggestions on how we could test how these variables relate to the y? Oops. So,
Matt, this is Sharon. You could, from session 5, that's where we're going to set up a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis. So, forgive me, I get these backwards sometimes. So the null hypothesis would be that those would have on the y condition. The variables have no effect on the y condition. Backwards, because we're going to assume
that.
So we're going to say that that these conditions do affect the y condition. That would be our null hypothesis. And what our alternate would be that these parameters have no effect on the y condition.
Yeah. There's a couple things that I'll show you guys how we can do in Minitab to test that hypothesis, null hypothesis. Multivariate. A couple different things in here that we could do. I always like to do first is there we go. Multi-chart. So you go to tools, multi-chart. Response is, and then a couple different factors in here that I can put in. So all these are factors. They're X's, right? So tires sold, parts sold, promo type, vehicle class. Right? All these we're saying have an effect on this Y. Okay? Noise. Blank data or something. Wait. This tab file that I sent you guys is for Minitab. Was Minitab 16. So I don't think this is. More than 40% of the cells are empty. Okay, doing it a different way. now try this again. Stat equals multi-vari chart. Got my total parts sold, promo type, vehicle class. I do not know this is doing that to me. Let's try with one vector first. Ah. What I do is plot, and this is I'm following a power, but show you guys what I typically do. Stone. What's called a mixed plot. So then you guys learn in session 5 and 6. Whether you have main effects plot. So my response is Y. My tires are tires sold, parts sold, and what type of vehicle class. I don't think there's anything in that. Hit up. Okay. Main plots. So you who have gone through 6 or anyone looking for main effects plots, are you able to determine anything on data, compare sold, parts sold, promo type, vehicle class? What can we make from this?
This is Sharon. I'm going to take a wild stab at this and say that based on what this plot is telling us is that the coupon promo type has a more direct impact on the tires and parts sold than the radio. It's higher. Again, I'm throwing accounting terms. Your investment for bonds is going to give you a higher rate of return than what your radio is going to be, because obviously you're having a greater impact on your sales.
Yeah.
And it also tells us that there's not a huge difference in the vehicle class, but the luxury and SUV seem to be a little bit higher than what the sedans would be. So that is not, I wouldn't get overly excited on that, because it could be that there's more luxury vehicles or SUVs and fewer sedans. But I think that the coupon and radio is really a pretty serious indication that the coupons are where they should be focusing their attention to have the greatest impact.
I'm looking at increasing my sales. First thing that I'm going to look at, because it's very significant, right? It's there's a difference in average for coupon versus radio, right? Class, it looks like there's something there.
What would you say in the class? What do you get out of that? Because I don't see a whole big significant difference there. And I was shying away from using that word significant, but since you're going to use it, I'm okay with that.
Well, so I used it without, because typically when you run main effects with multiple variables, sometimes these, like this one doesn't look like it has too much effect on each other. I want to look into it further. What you really told me is these are the two variables that I care about, promo type and vehicle class. There's much noise with tires sold and parts sold to determine anything about sales volume. As I increase my sold, it doesn't really have any effect on sales, right? So what I can do is I can go back and just start to focus on promo type and vehicle class. Okay. Talking about significant difference in promo type. What we typically do, promo type, we've got sales volume. Go back here to ANOVA, runway ANOVA. This one-way ANOVA because I saw in my six-pack that my data is normal. Right, that's the first step in being able to run an ANOVA and the data. And my response is my Y condition, my sales data. My factor is promo code. Okay. Level of 95%. Sometimes we put 90%, but I liked it at 90. Graphs, it'll give me a full plot. I always like to choose box plot because it's more visual sense for me. Okay. So we can see that coupon has a higher sales than radio. Okay. In order to be able to say there's a significant difference, I have to run an ANOVA and value. This is what Carrie was talking about in week 1. Because it's significant, my p-value needs to be less than 0.05 in order to be 95% confident that it's different. It's this about the probability that the means of my two variables are the same is 0. Right? So, talking about that hypothesis, I'm rejecting the fact that my mean same. I run a mix plot. This line right here, it end up with one way above it and one way below it. That is a very strong indication that I have a significant difference in these two variables. Okay, you're looking for this sharp line. Okay. For presentation, we've got an example from a different test. This is two types of twist. How many miles they list, right? So DC twist versus a ring twist. You can see that because there's such a strong here, I've seen if DC point is right here at 540 and ring twist is right here at 550, and it's a shallow slope, I might be able to say that it's significant. Because it's so strong, it's such a sharp slope, these are significantly different. And depending on what variable you're looking for, if you're looking for a lot of miles out of a twist, then you would want the ring method, right? So mini tab, we're going to pull out the most volume, so I'm just going to focus on coupon per month, right? If we can further into vehicle class to figure out what's going on with that, but initially from this first graph, if I'm reading a bunch of items on my multi-vari study, I'm going to do is put them into this main plot, right? So I project this is such a powerful tool, pulling this effects plot in, figuring out, tells me I have this many 10 variables that are really significant. I record data on those 10, and if 2 of them end up like this and 8 end up like this, that's because now you know which ones are important that have significant slopes the mean. That's what Spot is telling us. Any effects before I move on to just look at vehicle class?
Mrs. Sharon, I do have a question. Whenever you're talking about the significance of the slope, is there any kind of a standard rule that we look at to say, oh, this, that it should be a certain angle, certain number of degrees, or, something to say, because I could see this is a very good example, but I could also see where you could have one that's, kind of in between, that maybe it's not, sharp of a difference as this. It's a little flatter. And that's a subjective thing. So is that where this p-value is going to be helpful?
The p-value. So if to just run, let me just run for vehicle class, and let me show you something. This and say, wow, significant. It really jumps down for sedan and luxury and SUV are doing really well, right? These are clearly different from each other. But with just the main effects plot is if I throw in promo type, look a lot flatter, right? Because my scale has now had to account for the difference in promo type. So this is why we suggest that when you're running a main effects plot, you put any different variables in there as possible to begin with, because if one on its own, it's going to do that. It's going to take the scale of your high point and of your lowest point and spread it out across the graph, right? So why I felt like on main effects plot significant is because I had this range over here, up to $12,000 down to $8,000. Slope still pretty strong with promo type. Vehicles, it's not as much. If I did these individually, I'm not, ANOVA will really come in handy. ANOVA on this one, it's really running ANOVA, especially your data is normal. It's just one. So you run a one-way ANOVA. Instead of prototype, we're going to do class. Make sure plot. So you can see the mean of these all kind of looks about the same when we're how variable each one of them are. So here I've got a p-value 0.9. So we see this is not significantly different. Okay, so this I might say yes, because Matt and me, if it was that mean and it's really strong, it probably is significant. But when in ANOVA, that's why you have to run the ANOVA and check. But I'm not running ANOVA on this stuff because I know that's not right.
Let me ask you this now. So the purpose for having as many variables as possible is that way you can, the scale will automatically be adjusted so you can see which one has the greater slope. And so then you take your top ones out of those variables and then you zero in with the ANOVA so you can get a p-value because that's going to be your definitive, go-no is what that p-value is.
Yeah. It's just because the ANOVA usually takes a little bit more time and is more detailed when you're starting to look through some of this data. So run a main effects plot on all your variables first to say, forget I'm only going to focus on vehicle class and promo type. Right? So we do this first, but yes, you're right. You all on the same scale to figure out which ones are the strongest slope and then zero in on those from there. Okay. In this same chart, we've added now a region. So one thing we can do is run class and region. How to do that. This is the thing about Minitab 17. I didn't realize they moved all the multivariate things around. So I can't pull it up right now, so I'm not able to find it. What we can do is look at cube and radio and their effect on class and region. So there's a couple of things that get a lot more advanced in multivariate. So within coupon, I see my region is doing stronger with sedan and SUV, but not as well with luxury. And I also see line right here is for this grouping. So that's what that stands for. Multivariate charts can get pretty intense, and start digging into them. But doing main effects of variables that are significant, and then an ANOVA is the best. It tells you what is important and what is not, your why. And then you go back and figure out, you just for your main effects plots, which one you focus on more. What coupon or Rio, or if you were thinking about vehicle class, if that was significant, which one to focus on for sales as well. So that is the thing with multis coming in, being up your study, filling a worksheet, understand frequency that you need to collect data, variables you need to collect, and again, don't try to jump into this if you haven't done your cause and effect in your FMEA, because if I'm used to collect 30 data points and you haven't done your cause and effect FMEA, you might have 50 different KPIVs, right, from PL map. Is we want to narrow it down to the top important ones, right? So KPIV, we should have anywhere between 4 to 10, good number, between controllable and uncontrollable, and then come up with a plan on how to record them, because this will take time. You know, you and other people to go out to the floor, go to the Gemba, understand what's going on, and record this data. And you do that, plug it into Minitab and figuring out which ones are significant and which ones are not, and what your scene should be on the machine. So if you're recording line speed as a KIV, and you're recording that, you come up and you say, my speed needs to be based on main effects plot, might be above 50 in order to have less scrap. And then you would to implement a setting that says your line speed stays at 50 or above. Okay. I'll share this with you guys before week 2, because there will be things that we're talking about in week 2 with multi-vari charts, main effects plots, interact charts, and ANOVAs. and give you guys that baseline information before then. So, I guess I'll answer a little bit, see if anybody questions about applying it to their project or how they could do it if they have data that they want to walk through. Maybe take a share with the group.
Matt, so to the main effects, we have to have 30 samples?
You have 30 data points of one of your KPI or X's. And the thing is that you can relate it to condition.
I talked about this before. Obviously, I can do one thing twice. Part of our business. We'd talk about how we can get around that.
Well, for yours, we need to, because you don't know if it's a failure or not, a warranty claim until after the process. We need to figure out what in the shop we can record and have it be something like a measurable piece of data. So let me get with you, and I'll give you a call back. Okay, today or tomorrow if you're available. We can talk how to do a Y condition that's not one claims.
Okay.
The thing I point out that James brought up is if I'm recording these items, tires, parts sold, I need to make sure that I'm recording my Y condition alongside it. So this is day, whether this is hour, shift, I need to be able to record, because I'm just recording line speed, what's my operator count, what's my comp temperature. If I'm recording these things and not recording how much scrap we're sending off or how much rework we're producing, these aren't going to do anything for me. I need to measure the variables in KPIVs against my Washington. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about their own projects? Like Jane, that's a good one. So, what's you guys got?
Obviously, I've illustrated it. I've got plenty of historical data. However, I do feel it's going to be important to get bits of observations on site, which I've actually been able to tentatively schedule in sometime in September. Is it free to do two multi-vari studies, one with historical and one with current observations?
Yeah, if you're able to pull some historic data, say this one for an example, you have historic data on tires sold and parts sold, sales data, right? So you can go through and run this and see its significant main plots. If you have to go on site to capture this data, promo type vehicle class, you can run this separate. So if we had didn't data, and then we have. So I did batches, one collecting sales tires sold, parts sold, and one collecting sales data, promo type vehicle class. Getting to go. As long as I have 30 samples of these and 30 samples of these, there's no reason I can't do more than one study. So if you have historical data that has most of your KPIVs, run that. And then if you do more collection in the future, that way only going out and recording the things that are necessary that you don't have historical data on. So that's the point.
Be okay to combine those data, what historical data you've got plus the sampling you've got into a single set of data and run your various analysis on all of that at one time.
Absolutely. And when setting up your worksheet, and then someone was on here a second ago. I know in Salt Lake I was working with one of the guys out there who was going through his Greenbelt project. When he was setting up this multi-data worksheet, measurement method in here, it's just recording that. If you have where data historians to record some of your data for you, then when you're out on the floor to collect data, you don't have to worry about those things because you know that you trust the system that it's going to be recorded and it's going to be put in the right spot. All you have to do is focus on those that are important that you write down. Back and you combine the ones that were recorded in your system and combine with the ones that you went out and observed on the floor to get your overall multi-vari data worksheet. Good question. Yeah, it's not required that you write down, keep track of every piece of data that you get. You don't have to type these into Excel if they're being recorded already in a data historian or some sort of recording system. It's a really good point. Any other questions? Quiet today. Hopefully all of this stuff made sense. The multi-vari, I can't tell how setting up your note you're going to record. The worst thing would be you go and record a million different things and it's not on the right stuff and it's not against your Y condition. Making sure that you can go to it after you collect all your data, through any tab and running those main effects plots to figure out which ones are significant and what settings you should be at. The big takeaways from class in this early, just a little bit of extra time. If anyone has any questions setting up their worksheet, recording it, please shout to me. Let me know. This is, I can't say enough how important it is for problem solving. This is something that I use often. The entities that I've worked with in building products, the thing that they also use, it's so valuable. Go through and civilly collect data. You're not you're not stopping production. You're not mapping a bunch of material because you want to see how a machine runs. Collecting all this data and then analyzing what are the most valuable settings for that machine for that process. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. You have a good rest of your day, and if I don't talk to you before Nashville, you have a good time down in Nashville, learning about week 2.
All right.